Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This time I will build the Soviet-built fighter interceptor, the MiG-21MF MiG-21MF in 1:72 scale. For this build I choose the limited edition Eduard kit. The kit is the double pack, so it includes two models in it and lots of surprises. The box is quite heavy for two kits. The plastic moldings are nicely detailed. If you have the feeling that you don't see two kits, it's because I already built one like a year ago. And now it's time to build the second one in a fighter bomber configuration. The limited edition is of course a profi pack, so it includes photo etch parts for the cockpit and cockpit masks. The box includes up to 39 camouflages of the Czech and Slovak mix before and after the state separation. I'm Slovak, so I will probably build a Slovak Air Force MiG of the late 1990s. The decals are great and high quality. They contain labels for all MiG versions M, MF and the Czech upgraded NATO MFN versions. Another big surprise of a limited edition kit is the detailed history of the Czechoslovak MiGs, enriched with photographs from the beginning of the 70s until the decommission in the early 2000s. And here is the first fishbed from the box, call sign 7713, nicknamed Milka for its extraordinary light and dark gray camouflage scheme. I made a diorama to it, so maybe I will build another to my fighter bomber version. We will see. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for not missing any new notifications. Okay, let's start with the build. The MiG's cockpit is very easy to assemble. It contains 13 parts that need to be cut out, cleaned with a sharp knife and sanded down with sandpaper. For the assembly I use Revel Contacta glue and Mr. Mendes. Now that was quick. Before I apply the fighter bomber version photo etch parts, I need to paint and weather the cockpit. The MiG's cockpit is painted with a combination of Mr. Color C34 Sky Blue, C66 Bright Green and C80 Cobalt Blue colors. Next, I paint the KM1 ejection seat with Mr. Color C13 Neutral Grey color. Now I add a layer of clear varnish and weather the cockpit with a deep brown oil wash. Beside the cockpit, I also work on the main landing gear shafts. The wash dries out after 15 minutes and now I remove the excessive wash with a cotton swab. Next step are the photo etch parts. This work step was without problems. The super glue was very good and I didn't need to rush it up. For this work step I use a Loctite brand. I have the feeling that it's much better than the Pateks brand glue. If you have already met and compared different brands of superglues and you have a similar feeling, please let me know in the comments. Before the final cockpit assembly, I paint all small parts with a paintbrush. And here is the assembled cockpit. The smallest parts are just a few millimeters long, but I enjoyed building this tiny cockpit very much. At the end of the cockpit build, I glued the Photo Etche side avionic control panels. Next, I work on the Tumansky R13-300 engine and exhaust. I paint all parts with steel and bright green and I apply washes. After weathering, I assembled the jet turbine together. Now I assemble the main landing gear shaft and I can start to put the whole fuselage together. All parts fit very tight together, but the assembly was very good and without problems. For better and stronger bond, I ordered these cheap modeling clamps from Revell. This tool is very helpful and reliable. Before that, I glued the joints with the help of the masking tape. And it happened to me that the glue went behind the tape and etched the surface of the model. The next step is the wings assembly. First, I glue the hydraulic system for the landing gear and continue on gluing the upper wing surface. Now I glue the landing gear shaft and put the wings and fuselage together. The assembly was great and went by itself. I highly recommend this kit for every modeler. It's very fun to build. After a very quick assembly, there were only a few small gaps on the fuselage. Now I fill up the gaps with a mix of Mr. Putty and leveling thinner. Now a little bit of experimenting. The putty was still highly diluted and I removed it with a wet cotton swab and thinner. It worked, but it works only on the small gaps, not on the big one. There were some inaccuracies from gluing on the top of the fuselage. I smoothed them out with a P600 sandpaper. The main MiG assembly is slowly coming to its end. Now I work on the gun side and the front cockpit canopy frame. The Eduard Profi Pack includes additional masks for the cockpit canopy and lots of more surfaces. I will use them later in the video. The MiG is finally glued together. The last step is to glue the weapon pylons. Since I'm building a fighter bomber version, I will equip the MiG with additional fuel tank and 4 highly explosive FAB 250 kg bombs. The build is very easy and quick, and before I start to prepare for the paint job, I quickly assemble the landing gear and wheels. The wheels had ugly molding lines, so I sanded them down with a P320 sandpaper. The MiG is getting ready for painting. Now I mask the cockpit canopy with liquid mask and mask the gear shaft with a Tesa masking tape. To unify the surface, I use Mr. Surfacer 1000. It also serves as a primer coat. After surfacing, I highlight all panel lines with a pre-shading technique. Before painting of the camouflage, I need to paint all additional parts such as the radar cone and vertical stabilizer avionic panels with bright green and mahogany color. I mentioned before that the Eduard masks include not only masks for the cockpit canopy, but also masks for these parts. I decided to paint the MiG in a brown-green camouflage of the 31st Fighter Bomber Regiment placed in Fuselage, Slovakia from the year 1995. The machine was delivered from Bechyně Air Base in Czech Republic short before the site separation. I started to paint the camouflage with Mr. Color C43 Wood Brown. I want to create a slightly more worn-off camo, so I dilute the paint in a mix ratio to 1:4 to 11 in thinner. The green color is a mix of Mr. Color C136 Russian Green and C18 Black Green colors. The lower part of the aircraft is painted with Mr. Color C118 Light Blue. Before varnishing, I remove all masks except the cockpit. Next, I paint all small details with a thin paintbrush. And of course, I can't forget to paint the wheels, landing gear legs and the weapons. For painting the wheel rims, I use the Tamiya modeling template. It's a very helpful tool for everyone who has problems with painting wheels by hand. All parts are painted. Now I seal the paint job with a layer of Mr. Color GX100 Super Clear varnish. It's also time to apply decals. There is like 1,000 decals for every type of MiG version from the box. I will only use like 150 of them for my MF version. Applying 150 decals to such a small model is quite a daunting process. I will honestly tell you that the applying was quite crazy and I had to take breaks. Before this project, I worked on the Eduard's BF109 G14, where I was quite disappointed with the decals. But these decals are absolutely amazing, they don't tear and they are great to apply. After the decals are finally finished, I seal them with 2 layers of Mr. Color GX100 Super Clear varnish. Now it's time for weathering. For highlighting all panels, I use a black panel line wash from MiG-21MF. The dried out panel line wash can be removed with a paper towel. For hard to reach places such as folds, I use a cotton swab. Next, I imitate the worn and scratch off camouflage with a sponge chipping technique. For imitating dirt and oil leaks, I use my good old burnt sienna and burnt umber oil paints. Now I seal the weathering with a final layer of varnish. It's a mix of matte primary and a gloss super clear. The next step is the assembly. First, I glue the landing gear. Before gluing the main landing gear covers, I need to glue the external 490-liter fuel tank. The last step of the bottom side is to glue the FAB 250 kg bombs. Now I unmask the cockpit and work on the final details such as gluing the additional Photo Etche parts of the canopy and the cockpit frame. At the very end of the assembly, I glue and paint the small antennas with super glue and the MiG-21MF is finished. This kit was really easy and fantastic to build and was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed the build as much as I did. Please subscribe to my channel, like or leave a comment down below. If you're interested to see more of my work, join me on Facebook or Instagram. There is a link in the description. Thank you for watching and see you next time!